She was forced to marry a 44-year-old CEO. But what no one knows is that this cold, untouchable man hides a secret that will turn her entire life upside down. When the truth comes out, love, guilt, and forbidden desire will collide in a romance you won't be able to walk away from. Get ready. Nothing here is what it seems, and you'll want every second of this story. Before we begin, hit like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and hype the video to help the channel grow. Megan Walker never imagined that an ordinary Tuesday could shatter her entire life. At 26, she had mastered the art of living in organized chaos, over-the-top drama, fast-burning passions, impulsive decisions made with unwavering conviction. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for that chilly March morning in Chicago when her father decided to ruin everything with just one sentence. It all started with a shout that cut through the house like thunder. "Megan, get over here now!" She jumped off the sofa, almost dropping the bag of chips. She was balancing on her stomach. Still wearing her wrinkled 11 a.m. sweatshirt, she ran to the office with a pounding heart. Her father never yelled like that. That was the tone, reserved for tragedies, bankruptcy, death, or worse, a visit from gossipy relatives. When she walked into the office, the world slowed down. Adam was pale, sweating, with the expression of someone who had just sold his soul and regretted it 5 seconds later. But what truly made Megan freeze was the man beside him. Tall, elegant, intimidating. The gray hair at his temples looked like a work of art. His suit probably cost more than her car. His watch was certainly worth more than her entire house. And those gray eyes were capable of freezing hell. Shane Chambers, 44 years old, powerful banker, an old friend of her father's, and the last person in the world capable of showing any emotion other than absolute control. Megan wrinkled, her nose trying to look unconcerned. "Dad, what is going on? You look like you are about to faint. And who is this guy who looks like he came to collect a kidney?" Shane slowly raised an eyebrow, like someone evaluating a miscalculation. Megan countered with an eye roll. "Great, another arrogant man in her life." Adam cleared his throat. His voice came out shaky. "Megan, sit down." She sat. He did too. Shane remained standing like a millionaire statue. Her father took a deep breath, so deep that Megan thought he was going to cough up a lung. "My daughter, we are bankrupt." Megan widened her eyes. "What? What do you mean bankrupt? I leave you alone for 5 minutes and you do this? You have left me alone for 3 years, Megan," Adam retorted. "Since you started dating that unemployed adventurer who keeps borrowing money. Caleb is in a career transition." "He does not have a career, Megan." Shane cleared his throat for the first time, sounding almost human. "If we could focus on the essentials." Megan turned to him, annoyed. "Oh, sure. You are the essential now. Who invited you to the family meeting?" Adam closed his eyes, exhausted. "My daughter, please. Shane and I made an agreement to save the company, to save our home, to save everything." Megan narrowed her eyes, sensing danger in the air. What agreement? Silence. Heavy. Terrible. Frightening. Then Shane opened his mouth and Megan's life ended. "We are going to get married." Megan blinked once, twice, 10 times. He was still there, standing, alive, completely insane. "Pardon?" She laughed hysterically. "Get married? Me with you? I do not even know your last name, Mr. Chambers," he said firmly. Megan slapped her forehead. "Great. Even the last name is complicated, you know?" Adam suddenly stood up, desperate. "Megan, listen. Our company has a family tenure clause. It is bankrupt, about to be bought by foreigners. Shane volunteered to help, but there is only one way to unite the companies." He swallowed hard. "You two need to form a single family. Are you saying I have to marry this man because of legal paperwork?" Shane crossed his arms, his expression impenetrable. "Not just that. Your recent behavior has been a problem." Megan scoffed, indignant. "Sorry if I do not spend my life with a ruler shoved up my spine like you." He did not respond. He just watched her like someone analyzing defects in merchandise. Adam insisted, his voice trembling with genuine despair. "Daughter, I need you." He never said that, never. "It is either this or we lose everything." Megan felt her stomach churn. "Dad, I love Caleb. I am going to marry him." Shane let out a short, discreet but lethal chuckle. That young man with the fake gold tooth? It is stainless steel. He arched an eyebrow. How modern. Adam, shaking, did. Something that broke Megan's heart. He knelt before her. He knelt, and that made her world crumble. Daughter, please. Megan was trembling all over, fighting back tears. I cannot marry him. He is old enough to be my father. Your husband, Shane completed dryly. Nothing more. This is crazy. We do not match. You are a robot in a suit. I am an impulsive young woman who needs direction. An impulsive what? Shane repeated as if testing the words. Impulsive. I heard. I am just really annoyed. Her father started to cry silently. Megan remained motionless, watching that strong man fall apart in front of her. Then came the final blow. Shane said calmly, like someone discussing contract clauses, "It will be a formal marriage. Simple. A contract valid until we have one child." Megan gasped. One child? Are you crazy? I will never have a child with you. I will never have intimacy with a man who is old enough to be my father. We can do it in a laboratory, he replied with the same coldness. In vitro fertilization. Nothing personal. But the company requires an heir from both families to be unified. He continued, relentless. After that, a divorce. You will leave rich. Your father saved your life intact. My life will never be intact again after this. Then learn to live with cracks, Shane said, his eyes fixed on her. We all do. Megan took a deep breath, feeling the world spin. I need to think. Fine, Shane replied. You have 15 minutes. 15 minutes? I do not even know what I ate for breakfast. He looked at her mouth stained with chip dust. Coffee, apparently. Megan touched her lips, shocked. Damn it, she stumbled. Out, lost, dizzy. In her haste, she dropped the bag of chips at his feet. Shane picked it up with 2 fingers as if it were radioactive, analyzing the package like crime evidence. It is popular, it is delicious, and it is cheap, she yelled from the doorway before slamming it shut. In the silent office, Adam put his hands on his head. Shane, she will never accept. Shane dropped the package on the desk like someone abandoning a bomb and muttered, more to himself than to Adam. Yes, she will. Not for me. He glanced at the closed door. But for you. Megan ran to her room as if the floor were on fire. She picked up her cell phone with trembling hands and called Caleb. He answered on the 3rd ring, with that relaxed, drawn-out voice that never changed. Sweetheart, is everything okay? Megan closed her eyes, feeling the knot in her throat tighten. Caleb, we need to talk. Here we go. He chuckled, as if nothing in the world was serious. I am at the court training. Training. He was always training, never working, never growing, never evolving, always stuck in the same place. And she had never noticed how much that bothered her until now. My dad is bankrupt, Caleb, truly bankrupt. And to save the company, he wants me to... Her voice cracked. To marry Shane. Silence. But not a worried silence. A cold, calculating silence. Shane, who? Shane Chambers, my dad's friend. Businessman, millionaire, 44 years old, looks like a movie villain. You are kidding me, right? His voice rose, aggressive. He wants you to marry this old man? The word old echoed in her head in a strange way. It hurt. Maybe because deep down something in her already knew that Shane did not look old. He looked dangerous. I am not going to marry him, Caleb. I am just telling you. And why is your father bossing you around? Are you an adult or not? His voice was getting increasingly aggressive, laden with contempt. You never take any initiative, always doing what everyone else tells you to. That hit deep, in the exact spot where she accumulated all her insecurities. Caleb, I just need you to support me. Support you? He laughed mockingly. You are a walking problem. Do you realize what you are saying? Marry a rich guy? Are you making a fool of me? Megan literally stopped breathing. I just want to be with you, she whispered. With me? I'm always your last option, right? The ground disappeared from under her feet. That is not fair, Caleb. Oh no, go ahead, marry your millionaire then. Maybe he will pay for your psychiatrist because you are delusional. Her world cracked in F. Caleb, how can you talk to me like that? You think I am going to compete with a guy loaded with cash? Wake up, Megan. I am not your babysitter. When you decide to grow up, we will talk. And he hung up on her. The silence that followed felt enormous, crushing. Megan stared fixedly at the blank screen, waiting for him to call back, send a message, apologize. Anything. Nothing came, and the realization hit with a painful snap. That was the end. The end of the version of her that believed in that relationship. The end of the Megan who accepted scraps, thinking it was love. Son of a gun, she murmured, feeling the pain slowly turn into clarity. I defended you. The tears came all at once. Pain, anger, exhaustion, but also a shy beginning of freedom. Megan wiped her nose on her sweatshirt and looked around. The window, the damn window. I just need about 48 hours away from people, contracts, and mail. Disappointments, she whispered to herself. She opened the window, looked down, 10 feet. I jumped worse things in my adolescence. A lie. She had never jumped anything but adrenaline. Worked miracles. She put one leg out, balancing poorly. I really hope you are not thinking what it looks like. She froze. She turned around slowly. Shane Chambers was leaning against the deer frame, arms crossed, face tense. His gaze steady but profoundly tired in a way she did not yet understand. It was different from that typical rich guy coldness. It was something else. A hardness built from the inside, not by arrogance but by loss. She sensed it even without being able to explain it. I was just catching some sun, she said, with one leg still outside. The window. It is a new method. Vitamin D, radiation, therapy. He approached slowly, calculated steps. Come in. You are going to fall. What if I want to fall? Then choose the date. Time and height, he said with dangerous calmness. But not today, she scoffed. You are unbearable. And you are looking at me like you want to hit me. That is a start, he replied in an almost ironic tone. Shane firmly closed the window and made her sit on the edge of the bed. He remained standing, rigid, like someone avoiding vulnerability at all costs. Megan realized that Shane was the type who avoided sitting, not out of arrogance, but because sitting meant relaxing, and relaxing meant lowering defenses. He did not do that. Not anymore. We need to discuss the contract, he said. I am not signing anything. Yes, you are. No, I am not. You will, Megan. She crossed her arms, stubborn, but inside a part of her felt a slight tremor. Not of fear, of something she could not name, and that was the worst. Why? Because you rule everything? No, he said with controlled firmness. Because you are intelligent enough to understand that this saves your father, saves the company, saves your inheritance. The way he said your father carried weight, respect, perhaps even empathy. She did not expect that from him. An heir, she murmured, feeling the absurdity of the words. In vitro insemination. No physical contact, clinical. I do not want to involve emotions. He stiffened as he said that. Too rigid, like someone who had suffered from involvement before and did not intend to repeat it. Megan looked away, feeling an unexpected heat rise through her body. How absurd. You talk, as if I want to have intimacy with you. You do not, he replied coldly, and it is better that way. Wow, thanks. Am I that undesirable? He hesitated, and then he looked. It was not just any look. It was a look he clearly had not planned to give, as if something escaped the armor for a second. His eyes passed over her mouth, her tear-stained face, her messy hair, her oversized sweatshirt, and something in the air changed. A short, fierce, unbidden spark. He realized he had looked too long and immediately looked away. His jaw locked, as if he were fighting with himself. That is not it, he said, too cold to be true. I just do not want complications. Oh, I get it. I look like a complication to you? He took a deep breath, irritated with himself. You are the most complicated person I have ever seen. Thank you. It was not a compliment. Well, I thought it was. They stood face to face, so close that his cologne, distinctive, masculine, elegant, surrounded her. She hated the impact that had on her body, and she hated even more the fact that Shane had noticed. He held out an envelope. Read the contract. Think. Decide. She took it with trembling fingers. Shane took a few steps toward the door, but stopped. He remained silent for a few seconds, as if calculating risks, as if weighing what to say. Without turning his face, he said, About your boyfriend. Megan froze. He is not my boyfriend anymore. A short, almost imperceptible pause. Good, Shane replied, and there was something warm, contained, dangerous in his voice. I do not like to compete. He left, closing the door slowly. Megan, alone in the room, holding the contract, felt her chest tighten. She hated his way of being, feared his coldness, detested the situation, but when he looked at her that way, her body responded, and that was a huge problem, because she had never felt that with Caleb. Never. And now she was feeling it for the man she swore she would never marry. Days later, Megan's bedroom door slammed so hard that the mirror on the wall shook. She was pale, trembling inside the wedding dress that seemed to weigh tons of regret. Her heart was pounding so loudly, it muffled even the shouts of Aunt Grace arguing with the decorator in the garden. I am not going to do this, Megan murmured to her own reflection, clutching the dress. I cannot marry that stone-cold man. I hate him. Her cell phone vibrated on the vanity, lighting up like a distress signal. Caleb, the name that was poison and addiction at the same time. The biggest mistake she insisted on defending. She answered with a gasp. Sweetheart, where are you? Please tell me you are not going through with this insanity. His voice was soft, drawn out, in that manipulative way that planted doubt where there should only be certainty. Caleb, I do not know what to do. Run away now, Megan. I love you. I have always loved you. Today is your wedding and I want you here with me. I need you. They are selling me like merchandise to that cold banker. She closed her eyes, feeling the pain of the words. On the other side of the property, Shane was already at the altar, impeccable, cold, immobile. His hands were clasped behind his back, but his eyes betrayed something he himself would not admit, an irritated restlessness, almost imperceptible. The bride was late, ridiculously late. That is when his assistant approached running, pale with panic. Mr. Chambers, the bride. The bride what? Shane only raised one eyebrow, but his tone was pure ice. She left through the back door. What did you say? They said she went to meet someone in her wedding dress. The veins in his jaw popped, but his voice came out icy, controlled, dangerous. Hold the guests. I am going to get my bride. Megan arrived at the empty parking lot of an old factory on the outskirts of Chicago, where Caleb worked once in a while. He was there, leaning against his battered car, wrinkled t-shirt, that seductive smile that always promised more than it delivered. When he saw her in the white dress, he opened his arms theatrically. You really came? I knew you would make the right decision. She ran to him with tears in her eyes, desperate for confirmation. I love you, Caleb. I love you too, baby. He hugged her, but his eyes were already calculating. And you know I only did not ask you to marry me before because you did not want to, she completed in a threat of a voice, feeling the truth hurt. No, that is not it. It is because I am broke, sweetheart, but now I am trying a new business venture. If you could help me out with about $10,000. Megan froze. Caleb, I am standing here in a wedding dress running away from my wedding. And that is exactly why, sweetheart, before it is too late. He took her hand with alarming naturalness and began to type the amount into the transfer application. It is just to start the business, love. Trust me, Caleb. It will be quick. Just enter the password here. She was going to give in. She was going to give him the money and make the same mistake for the 1,000th time, because that is what she always did. Believed, forgave, started over. But there was no time. Behind the two of them, a black luxury car braked with a menacing elegance. The roar of the engine silenced the world. Shane stepped out in his suit, impeccable, his dark eyes fixed on them. Like a judge about to pass sentence, he walked toward them with steady steps, hands in his pockets, his presence occupying all the available space. So this is where my bride comes on her. Wedding day? His voice was too calm for the danger it carried. Megan instinctively recoiled. Caleb tried to act brave, although his voice came out shaky. Get lost, man. She does not want to marry you. Man, Shane repeated, savoring the word with calculated contempt. Interesting vocabulary for someone who keeps borrowing money from the woman he claims to love. Caleb turned red with anger. Megan even worse. Shane continued, relentless, every word a sharp blade. Megan, look around, look closely. He did not ask you to marry him. He never did. Because I cannot afford it, Caleb retorted defensively. I noticed, Shane replied with surgical coldness. And do you plan to live like this forever? Working to support a man who manipulates you? Who does not even respect you? Caleb cursed under his breath. Shane did not even blink. Do you want this for your life, Megan? He asked, looking directly into her eyes, breaking through all her defenses. Are you going to spend the next few years hiding, supporting someone who does not value you and who does not even truly want you? She trembled, feeling every word land like a punch to the stomach. She looked at the cell phone in Caleb's hand, with the screen asking for confirmation of the transfer. She looked into his eyes, empty of any real concern for her, and she saw everything she had been too blind to see until now. With a quick movement, she snatched the cell phone from his hand. Enough, Caleb. It is over. What? Are you really going to marry that old man? Yes, I am. You are crazy. Maybe, she said, her voice steady for the first time. But I am a crazy woman who is at least going to have peace. She walked past Caleb without looking back. She stopped in front of Shane, raising her chin with anger mixed with relief. I hate you. I hate you with all my might. Shane sighed, tired, but almost satisfied. Good, that is an emotion already. For a start, it is great. He opened the car door. She got in, huffing, clutching the bouquet tightly. Shane walked around, got in, and started the engine with precise movements. Let us get this over with, Megan said, looking out the window. I want to finish this marriage right away. Easy now. Shane adjusted his tie, the corner of his mouth almost forming a smile. You still need to throw the bouquet and smile for the pictures. It is the least you can do after almost turning me into the abandoned groom of the year in the financial press. She could not hold back a short, nervous laugh, which escaped before she could stop it. You are impossible, and you have terrible taste in men, he countered, including fake husbands. But at least you have money, you idiot husband. Runaway bride. The car sped off, and even though she said she hated him, the air became dangerously charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Minutes later, in the meticulously decorated garden of the Walker property, the priest cleared his throat for the third time. Megan could only hear her own blood pulsing in her ears, each heartbeat a war drum against her decision. The guests were whispering discreetly. Aunt Grace fanned herself with theatrical exaggeration. Adam cried without disguise. When it came time for the vows, Megan's voice came out shaky, almost inaudible. I do. Shane responded with absolute firmness, like someone signing $1 billion contract. I do. Cold, calculated, without a drop of emotion. The priest, relieved to finally end that tense ceremony, announced, You may now seal the IOU union with a kiss. Shane leaned in, perfunctory. His voice was low for her alone to hear. Come on, it is just a kiss. Staging. Megan laughed, a nervous laugh that came out like pure poison. A kiss with a man 20 years older. You are old enough to be my father, you know. The words cut the air like a blade. They cut deeper than she imagined. His face instantly hardened, his jaw locked. Something in his eyes died for a second, replaced by a coldness she had never seen before. He held her chin, firm, controlled, and instead of kissing her mouth, he pressed his icy lips to her forehead. A dry kiss, a kiss of contempt, a kiss that clearly said, You do not deserve me. And then, just for her to hear, he whispered against her skin, One day, Megan, you will beg for that kiss. In that exact moment, the silent promise was born that would make Megan regret this moment for the rest of her life. A murmur passed through the garden like a cold wind. Megan felt her chest crack, not from love but from concentrated shame. The humiliation burned her face like live fire. Shane adjusted his cufflinks with the calmness of someone concluding a negotiation, not someone who had just been publicly insulted. We are even now, he said quietly, only to her. No more, no less. She bit her lips hard to stop the crying that threatened to escape. Arrogant, childish. I hate you. Noted. The car that took them back to the mansion seemed quieter than a tomb. Megan crossed her arms tightly, her gaze fixed on the window, as if she could escape just by staring at the world outside. Chicago passed quickly. Gray buildings, wet streets, heavy sky. Shane drove with a locked jaw, impeccable posture, as if he were transporting a troublesome load, not a newly acquired wife. When the automatic gate opened, revealing the property, Megan felt the air leave her lungs. His mansion was immense, modern, cold, glass, concrete, and architectural silence. There were no paintings on the walls, no exposed mementos, nothing to indicate life. It looked like a place designed by someone who was afraid to feel anything. "Do you live here alone?" she asked in a threat of a voice, getting out of the car. "I do." Silence. The long hallway reflected. White lights on the polished marble. Everything was too impeccable, too organized, too empty. Like him. Megan took off her bridal shoes, exhausted, and walked around, observing the rooms. "Empty of stories, empty of soul. Why is there nothing of yours here?" she insisted, her voice echoing in the space. "It looks like one of those staged apartments for sale." "I have everything I need. This place looks like a rich man's mausoleum." He stopped. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting hers. "Perhaps because I prefer to avoid memories." "Of what?" His eyes hardened like concrete. "That is none of your business, Megan." She laughed, bitter, wounded by the entire day. "Of course, you are never going to be my business, and I am never going to be yours, because I will never ever feel anything for a man like you." The words landed like precise stabs. Shane remained motionless, but something inside him cracked, broke, bled silently. She continued, cruel in her own pain. "You can have money, you can have power, you can have this huge freezing mansion, but none of that changes the fact that you are a man who wanted to marry someone who will never feel attracted to you. Never." He closed his eyes like someone holding their own blood in their mouth. "Megan, that is enough." "Oh, sure. You must be tired." "Age, right?" He inhaled deeply. "Too long, too painful. Good night." He entered his own room and closed the door with an irritatingly controlled elegance. Megan stood still in the immense hallway, hugging herself, trapped between fury and a strange feeling she refused to identify. She entered the room designated for her and slammed the door shut. "Idiot, arrogant, old, grumpy," she whispered as she angrily tore off the wedding dress, throwing it on the floor as if it were to blame for everything. She sat on the giant bed and, finally alone, her pride melted. The tears came down hot, thick, aching. She cried out all the pain inside her. She cried for what she had lost. She cried for what she had chosen. She cried for what he had provoked. Without realizing it, in the next room, Shane remained seated on the edge of the bed, rigid as a statue. He heard every muffled sob, every failing breath, and with every sound, something inside him tightened like pliers around his heart. He lay down, staring at the dark ceiling, clenching his jaw. Wonderful. I married a girl who hates my existence. But then he clenched. His fists determined, almost dangerous. She will learn. She will learn to respect me. She will learn to feel, even if I have to tear down every wall she has built. He turned on one side, then on the other. He rubbed his face. He sighed softly. "Damn it, I am not going over there. I am not," he muttered, like someone fighting against himself, against instincts he should not have. But he stayed awake all night. He out of wounded pride and silent determination. She out of desperation and regret. And between the two, a dense, heavy, charged silence. The kind of silence that announces inevitable storms. The next morning, Megan woke up with the light piercing through the heavy curtains. Curtains so expensive they probably cost more than her entire previous wardrobe. The king-size bed seemed to have swallowed half her body during the night. For one sweet, illusory second, she imagined that it was all just an elaborate nightmare, a bad dream where she married a grumpy banker who always seemed about to audit someone's life. But then, she opened her eyes, saw the high ceiling, the modern minimalist chandelier, the elegant coldness of that room that contained nothing of her, and she remembered. She married Shane Chambers, the man who had the aura of an implacable CEO, a severe judge, and a Wall Street wolf, mixed into one highly irritating human being. She let out a groan of distress and covered her head with the down pillow. "My life is over, but my hunger remains steadfast," she muttered. When her stomach growled too loud to be ignored, she put on the silk robe that someone had carefully left folded over the armchair. It certainly was not Shane. He probably slept in a suit if it were not against the rules of elegance, and went down the marble stairs. The kitchen was a spectacle of design. Everything gleamed. Everything was white and stainless steel. Everything gave the impression that a scientist might emerge at any moment asking for DNA samples. And what was there to eat? Nothing. Absolutely nothing that a normal human being would consider breakfast. Only minimalist bowls with perfectly cubed fruit, unsweetened yogurt, seeds with names that sounded like spells, artisanal granola, and smoked salmon. At 7:30 in the morning. "Where's the bread?" Megan asked the void indignantly. "A simple slice of toast, a croissant, a donut? Good morning." Shane's voice sounded behind her, deep, slightly hoarse, in that way that made her want to fight and maybe a little bit of something else that she would not admit even under torture. She jumped, turning around quickly. He was standing at the kitchen entrance, wearing a fitted black t-shirt and gray sweatpants. Gym clothes, clearly. His hair slightly messy, still damp, a detail that made her heart stumble before she mentally cursed herself. He might be older, but he was absurdly attractive for any woman's emotional sanity. And the worst part, her problem was not his age. It was the way he looked at everything, including her, as if he were always evaluating, calculating, measuring. "Good morning," she replied dryly, trying to pretend she had not noticed the defined arms, the impeccable posture, and that cursed smell of expensive soap. Shane walked to the Italian coffee machine like someone executing a military protocol. He served himself. He drank it black, without sugar, without milk, without soul. "The table is set," he said, nodding. "This?" Megan pointed to the minimalist plate with 4 strawberries, 3 almonds, and something green that looked like vegan restaurant decoration. "This is breakfast." "It is." "That is not breakfast, Shane. That is nutritional punishment." "It is healthy." "It is sad." His gaze shifted slightly. It was not anger. It was as if he were curious or annoyed at being curious, which was even worse. "If you want something different," he said calmly, "ask Olivia. She cooks." Great. Megan was already marching toward the employee who was tidying the adjacent living room. "Olivia, for the love of all that is sacred, make me a pancake, a waffle, scrambled eggs, bacon, a slice of pie, anything that resembles calories and human happiness." Shane cleared his throat softly, but she ignored him like a champion. While waiting, she felt his gaze on her. That always calculated look, as if he were analyzing risks, investments, and returns, even when the subject was her asking for real food. And then she remembered the day before, the words she had thrown at him, the kiss he refused to give, the public humiliation she herself had caused. Great. If there was a world record for destroying one's own dignity in 24 hours, she had broken them all. Shane looked away, his jaw tight. The atmosphere became so icy that you could see your own breath freezing in the air. After breakfast, which Olivia prepared with genuine pity, Megan decided to explore the mansion. In reality, she was bored and faintly hopeful of finding a secret passage to escape, or at least a room that did not look like the set of a thriller movie. She passed the living room. Impeccable, no magazines, no remote control in sight, nothing out of place. The library, books organized by color and size, which was a crime. Against literature. The private cinema room. 8 leather armchairs, a giant screen, and 0 popcorn. "This man has no soul," she muttered. She continued exploring until she heard his voice on the phone coming from a nearby room. "No, I will not sell the Boston branch. The merger was strategic. It is only a matter of time before the results show." Strategic merger. Contract results. That was exactly what their marriage was. She sighed, feeling her chest tighten, and continued walking until she found a slightly ajar door. His office. The door was slightly open. His mistake. Temptation level, maximum. She entered slowly, stepping on the Persian rug as if it were forbidden territory, which it probably was. The atmosphere smelled like, "Do not touch anything." She touched everything. Perfectly aligned books on international finance, objects of discreet luxury, an antique globe, a Mont Blanc pen, a Swiss desk clock. The tea, Desk was immaculate, not a single sheet of paper out of place. And then a half-open drawer caught her attention like a magnet. Megan looked behind her. No one. She looked at the drawer. Temptation. She looked back again. Just a quick peek, she whispered to herself. She pulled the drawer open slowly, her heart racing for no rational reason. Inside, among organized documents and labeled folders, there was an old photograph, faded, crinkled at the edges as if it had been held many times. A boy, about 8 or 9 years old, a big smile, bright eyes, chubby cheeks, holding a basketball in front of a school court. Her stomach unexpectedly clenched. It was not the kind of photo someone leaves exposed. It was the kind of photo someone hides to protect a pain that never healed. "What are you doing?" Shane's voice behind her made Megan freeze completely. Slowly, very slowly, she turned around. He was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, his expression hard as granite. But his eyes held something else. Something deep, dark, something he would hate for her to notice. I was just looking," she stammered, holding the photo. "Poking through my things," he corrected, his voice low, sharp, too controlled not to be dangerous. Worse than a shout. "You left the drawer open." "I left the office door closed. That did not stop you." The silence weighed like lead between them. Then she asked the question she should not have. "Who is he?" Shane became static. The air completely changed. It became heavy, dense, almost painful to breathe. "It is none of your business," he said slowly, each word measured. He took a step forward. He held out his hand. Megan hesitated, but handed over the photo. He took it with extreme care, too delicate to match his mood. Delicate like someone holding something that hurts too much to let go of, but hurts too much to keep. This made her heart do a silly, unexpected leap. Shane put the photo away, closed the drawer slowly, and then approached. One step, she backed away. Another step, she held her breath. He stopped just inches from her, so close that she could feel his warmth, see the small expression lines around his eyes. "Megan," he said softly, the tone controlled but vibrating with something restrained. "There is a difference between living in this house and invading what I do not want to share." She raised her chin, defensive. "I am not your prisoner." "No?" He looked directly into her eyes without blinking. "But you are my wife." The words shook the air between them, loaded with a weight neither of them expected. He realized what he had said too late. He took a step back, regaining his coldness like armor. "Do not come in here without permission," he finished, his voice back to its professional, distant tone. He turned and left, leaving Megan alone in the office, her heart beating too fast and her mind in absolute chaos. The following days were strange. They were not bad. They were not good. They were charged. Every time Shane crossed paths with her in the hallway, her stomach did involuntary flips. Every time he spoke with that deep, controlled voice, something inside her warmed up. Every time he looked at her, even for a second, she felt as if she were being truly seen for the first time in her life. And that was dangerous. Very dangerous. On the third day, during the silent dinner, Shane put his fork down and faced her. "We need to discuss a few things." Megan raised an eyebrow. "What things?" "Your behavior." She almost choked on her water. "My behavior?" "Yes," he continued impassively. "You are now Mrs. Chambers. That comes with expectations, responsibilities. There are social events, business dinners, public engagements, and what does that have to do with my behavior?" He took a deep breath, choosing his words. "You are too spontaneous, impulsive. You speak without thinking. You act without considering consequences." Megan put her fork down hard. "You are saying I am a disaster." "No," he replied, but the hesitation was too long. "I am saying you can be better than that. You are smart. Megan, you just need to mature." The words landed like a slap. She lowered her head, feeling the shame rise hot up her neck. For the first time, she looked at herself not as superior for being young and free, but as someone who perhaps needed to grow up. "You talk as if I were a child," she whispered. His expression softened, just a millimeter, but it softened. "That is not it, but you can be more than you think you are." That sentence affected her in a way nothing else had managed. Because he was not criticizing out of cruelty. Was he believing in her? Seeing potential? She did not know how to handle that. She got up from the table without saying anything and went to her room, feeling the weight of his words like overly heavy blankets. Shane remained alone in the dining room, watching the empty spot where she had been. "Damn it," he muttered softly, because something in him wanted to go to her. He wanted to say it was not about changing her. It was about protecting her from a world that would devour her if she did not learn to defend herself. But he did not go, because going to her would mean admitting he cared, and he had sworn he would not give in, not until she asked, not until she recognized what was between them. The next morning, it was different. Megan came down for breakfast earlier. She put on more suitable clothes. Not exactly formal, but not her usual crumpled sweatshirt. She tried to comb her hair. She tried to look more like a wife and less like a temporary invader. Shane noticed immediately when she entered the kitchen. His eyes passed over her, quickly but not quick enough for her not to notice. "Good morning," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Good morning," he replied, and there was something different in his tone. Surprise, approval. They had breakfast in silence, but it was not the tense silence from before. It was another kind of silence, the kind that left room for something new to grow. And when their eyes met by chance across the table, neither of them immediately looked away. It was only a second, maybe two, but it was enough for both of them to feel it. The tension had not disappeared. It had just changed form, and that, both of them knew, was even more dangerous. The days following the wedding were a silent war. It was not a war of shouts or accusations. It was worse. It was the war of glances that lasted half a second longer than they should have, of thoughts that were never spoken, of judgments that were born even before any word was pronounced. The air changed temperature when they were in the same room. Of the irritatingly magnetic way Shane always seemed to appear exactly where she was, occupying too much space, too much presence, too much masculinity. And Megan hated noticing it. She hated feeling it even more, trying to avoid morning encounters. But the mansion seemed to conspire against her. Or perhaps the universe had a particularly cruel sense of humor. Staircase coming from the upper floor, white linen shirt, sleeves rolled up on his forearms revealing strong wrists. The discreet woody scent that seemed to embrace the air around him, like conquered territory, perhaps did not exist between them. Still morning horse. Pass on my left. He leaned his body slightly to that side, so little it seemed like deliberate provocation. Movement bringing his face dangerously close to hers. Forgot that she should hate him. 1 second was enough for the two of them to get lost in each other, for the world to disappear, for time to stop as in romantic cliches she used to ridicule, burn. But both knew that had not just been a trivial exchange of space in the hallway. Not between them, never between them. Was looking for the library, because in a house that size, even finding a room twice was a challenge. When she passed the mansion's gym, could see his silhouette. Shane was inside, alone, shirtless, doing pull-ups. Every pull revealed the muscles in his back working in perfect sync, his broad shoulders, his narrow waist, his abdominal lines contracting with every movement, as if hypnotized. "My God," she whispered softly. "Who is this man?" Control. He descended from the bar. He took his towel, passed it over his face and neck without haste, and then he turned, staring at her through the glass. Did not smile. Shane did not smile, but something in his eyes warmed up in a way she had never seen before. Something intense, dangerous, contained like a caged animal. The kind of warmth that also carried the shadow of old pains that he hid from the world. Leaning against the gym's glass wall, Shane took a deep breath. Long, controlled. He realized that perhaps he was starting to burn too, and that was not in the plans. They tried to go through the same door at the same time. She was coming from the living room. He was coming from the office. The double door to the dining room was wide, but not wide enough for two bodies to pass simultaneously without contact. That would not even have been that serious, but his body reacted before his brain could calculate necessity versus desire. His body too close, too tall, too solid, retorted, looking up at those gray eyes that studied her like a complex equation. Her voice came out lower than she wanted, almost a whisper. frozen in that absurd and dangerous pose. Desire that could no longer hide, neither of them mature enough to admit the obvious. Fabric before letting go completely, and that simple movement sent shivers down her spine. Hard, trying to regain whatever dignity she still possessed. It is fine. Slightly. This is ridiculous, she muttered to herself, completely ridiculous. But she knew she was lying. Slept poorly, tossing and turning in the huge bed, thinking about things she should not. He also slept poorly, although he would never admit it, because admitting it would hurt. And he already had too many things hurting inside him, things she did not know, things that would one day surface and change everything. Knocked on the door with a long dress hanging on her arm. "Mrs. Chambers, the master asked me to bring this. There is an important dinner tonight with business associates. It starts in 1 hour." Distracted, looking at his jaw or something equally unproductive. Chosen by someone with impeccable taste. It probably cost more than her old car. Went downstairs exactly 3 minutes before the scheduled time. Coming down the stairs, something in his eyes changed. It heated up, it shone. But all he said was, "You are punctual. That is new." "That is not true," he said softly, his eyes sweeping over her dress once more. "You are adequate. Adequate." What a romantic compliment. But the way he looked said much more than the chosen word. Businessmen with their bored wives. Megan tried. She genuinely tried. But it was difficult when the conversations revolved around stocks, mergers, acquisitions, and fiscal policy. She called the French wine too strong, confused the name of one of the directors, calling Peterson Patterson, laughed too loud at a joke no one else found funny, and dropped the linen napkin on the floor twice. Authentic Chambers. Too young for these formal settings, perhaps. His smile was condescending, venomous, at the man with that coldness that made executives tremble. "My wife," he said, each word sharp as a scalpel, "is genuine. Something extremely rare at tables like this where everyone pretends to be what they are not." Businessmen were speechless. Megan looked at Shane as if she had never been defended in her life, because she never had been. Absolutely no one had ever defended Megan that way. They always said she was exaggerated, superficial, silly, immature, irresponsible. They always criticized her, never protected her. She had the most, her unique way of being. Shane noticed her gaze and looked away quickly, irritated with himself for caring too much. Because caring hurt. Because caring brought back things he was trying to forget. Because caring was admitting that she affected him, and he had sworn he would not give in first. Soft click. Megan took off her heels, exhausted, and turned to thank him, but she stopped. Shane was looking at her, not with coldness, not with judgment, with intensity, strong, penetrating as if analyzing her every gesture, every breath, every heartbeat, as if he saw her beyond what she showed, beyond the masks, beyond the defenses. Her voice coming out more vulnerable than she intended. "For defending me back there." They were dangerously close now. One wrong move and they would fall into each other like a spark finding gasoline. Archie was sure he could hear it, waiting for a kiss, a touch, anything. Almost touched her face, almost. "Megan," he said with a controlled, cold, practiced voice. In her mind, why does he not want me? Why will he not touch me? Why do I want him to touch me so badly? And the most frightening question of all, when did I start wanting this? Meanwhile, in his room, Shane threw himself into the leather armchair, running his hands over his face forcefully. He was trembling. "She is going to have to ask," he said, through clenched teeth, his breathing heavy and uneven. "She is going to have to beg me. I will not give in. I will not." His voice cracked at the end. His body was burning as if he had a fever. His hands were shaking. His patience was at its limit. And it was not anger he felt. It was the beginning of a serious problem. Because no one, absolutely no one, ever made Shane Chambers lose control, except her. The next day it was even worse. Megan woke up restless, confused, frustrated. She wandered around the house trying to distract herself, but everything reminded her of him. At night, she was returning from the garden when she heard voices coming from the kitchen. Olivia was talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, he still keeps that picture. No, he never talks about it. It is the only subject Mr. Chambers cannot control." Megan froze. Photo. The boy's photo. Without thinking, she walked into the kitchen. Olivia quickly hung up. "Olivia," Megan said, her voice low but firm. "I need to know, who is the boy in the photo, the one in his office?" The employee froze, her face paling. "Ma'am, that should not be mentioned." "Why?" Olivia hesitated for long seconds, her eyes full of sorrow. "Because it is the only subject your husband cannot control. It is where he bleeds." And she hurried out of the kitchen, leaving Megan with her heart pounding too hard. Because at that moment she understood. The man she thought was made of ice had a hidden fire, a deep pain, a past that hurt. Past that she would inevitably discover. And when she did, they would both never be the same. Late that night, Megan was in her room when there was a knock on the door. It was Olivia, with a strange expression. "Mr. Chambers asked you to come to his room." Megan widened her eyes. "To his room? What for?" "He did not say, ma'am." Her heart raced. Fear, expectation, both. She walked slowly down the hallway, her bare feet silent on the cold marble. She stopped in front of the main bedroom door. She knocked. "Shane, why did you call me?" The door opened, and she completely stopped breathing. Shane was shirtless, just gray sweatpants low on his waist, revealing the defined V of his abdomen, his pectoral muscles, his broad shoulders, his hair, messy as if he had run his hands through it many times. A dangerously human, vulnerable, real look. Her heart exploded in her chest. My God, she thought, shocked at herself. What an absurdly attractive man. He did not even seem to notice the devastating effect he was having, or he noticed and pretended not to. "We need to talk about the child," he said seriously, impassively, leaning a hand on the doorframe. "We should already plan the fertilization procedure." The word child came out like an agenda item, without affection, without emotional intent, almost as if getting pregnant were a financial transaction, and that hurt Megan in a way she could not explain. "Child?" she repeated, trying to process it. "Like this? You, shirtless, talking about medical procedures?" She took a step forward without realizing it. Another step. She felt his warmth, the smell of soap and something masculine that was uniquely his. Her gaze involuntarily went down his defined chest, his toned abdomen. "You called me here like this?" she whispered, her voice failing. "To talk about this?" Shane frowned, genuinely confused. "To discuss the medical procedure, yes. The lab needs some information and—" "Procedure," she repeated, still staring at his body, hypnotized. She was so close now that anyone would bet a kiss was about to happen. Even Shane seemed to notice it. His eyes dropped to her mouth, lingering there for half a second longer. The silence became electric, vibrant, dangerous. "Megan," he said, lowering his voice. "What are you doing?" She froze. She realized she was leaning in too much, wanting too much, too ready for something he clearly was not going to give, and that frightened her more than any anger she felt toward him. "You want a child?" she stammered, trying to regain control. "I thought that—" He turned his back abruptly, grabbed a folder from the table, and handed it to her with all the formality in the world, as if he was not standing there with all that beauty destroying her hormones, as if he were incapable of touching her for any reason other than contractual. "Here are the clinic documents. In vitro fertilization. Read them carefully, and then we will discuss the next steps." She held the papers as if they were burning embers in her hands, her face red with shame, her soul on fire, her pride completely destroyed. "You infuriate me," she shouted, trying to survive her own humiliation. "Who calls a woman to their room, shirtless at 11 o'clock at night to talk about fertilization and bureaucracy?" He raised an eyebrow, absolutely calm, cruelly composed. "Who said I needed to be dressed to discuss contracts? You are unbearable, and you are too impulsive. I hate you." Noted. She threw the papers on his bed and slammed the door with all the force she could muster. But as she walked away down the hallway, the truth was painfully clear. The fire she felt would not be extinguished even with a cold shower. And, inside the room, leaning against the closed door with his jaw locked and his fists clenched, Shane was also breathing too deeply for someone who supposedly felt nothing. Because deep down, hidden behind all the defenses, he felt everything. He just did not know what to do with it anymore. because the humiliation of the wedding day still burned. Her words about his age still hurt, and he had sworn silent revenge. "She will ask me," he murmured to the darkness of the room. "She will beg me, she will dream of me, and I will not give in until she recognizes what she lost at that altar." But he did not know that this oath would be impossible to keep, because Megan was a wildfire, and he was surrounded by gunpowder. The following days were strange in a new way. Megan could not stop thinking about the hidden photo, about the boy with the wide smile, about the way Shane had held that image, like someone holding something precious and broken at the same time. And the more she thought, the more she realized. She knew nothing about the man she had married, nothing beyond the cold, impeccable surface he showed the world. But there was something underneath, something deep, painful, carefully buried, and she needed to know what it was. Not out of empty curiosity, but because, and it scared her to admit it, she cared. She began to observe him with different eyes, the way he would sometimes stand by the office window, staring at nothing, completely lost in thoughts that seemed too heavy. How, occasionally when he thought no one was looking, he would run his hand over his face with a fatigue that went beyond the physical. How there were nights when she would hear footsteps in the hallway, his unable to sleep walking through the house in the dead of night. Shane Chambers was not made of ice. He was made of frozen pain, and Megan needed to understand why. It was on a rainy Tuesday afternoon that she finally mustered the courage. She found Olivia in the laundry room, folding sheets with the meticulous precision Shane demanded of everything in the house. "Olivia," Megan began, closing the door behind her. "I need to talk to you." The older woman looked up, already seeming to know what was coming. "Mrs. Chambers, please." Megan approached, her voice low, urgent. "That photo in the office, the boy, I need to know who he is. I need to understand what happened to Shane. What made him like this?" Olivia slowly placed the sheet aside, her shoulders drooping as if carrying a weight that was not hers. "That is not my story to tell. I know, but you are the only person here, and I—" Megan felt her voice falter. "I care about him, Olivia, more than I should, more than is sensible, and I cannot help him if I do not know what hurts him." The employee's eyes shone with something akin to compassion. "You love him, do you not?" The question dropped like a bomb. Megan opened her mouth to deny it, but the words did not come, because it was true. At some point between the sheer hatred, the frustration, and the attraction, she had fallen in love with that impossible man. "Yes," she finally whispered. "I love him." Olivia sighed deeply, like someone finally giving in after a long internal battle. "I cannot tell you everything. It would not be right, but I can tell you one thing. If you truly want to understand your husband, you need to talk to his mother." "Audrey?" "Yes, she knows everything, every detail, every pain, every regret he carries." Olivia grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, writing down an address. "She lives right here, Chicago. But be prepared, ma'am. Some truths are too heavy." Megan took the paper with trembling hands. "Will she receive me? If you tell her you love her son?" Olivia gave a sad half-smile. "She will receive you, but she will also judge you. Audrey Chambers is protective, especially after everything Shane has been through." Audrey Chambers' house was in Evanston, an elegant neighborhood north of Chicago. A beautiful Victorian residence with a well-kept garden and autumn flowers coloring the path to the door. Megan took 3 deep breaths before ringing the bell. The door opened, revealing a woman in her 70s, gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun, erect posture, gray eyes identical to Shane's. Those eyes studied her, up and down with surgical precision. "Megan," the woman said, her voice firm without surprise. "I know who you are. Mrs. Chambers, Audrey. You can call me Audrey." She crossed her arms. "And I remember the wedding very well. I perfectly remember how you humiliated my son in front of everyone." Guilt squeezed Megan's chest like a vice. "I know. I came here precisely. Because of that, I need to—" "Does he know you came?" "No." Audrey observed her in silence for long seconds. She did not see arrogance. She did not see pretense. She saw genuine pain, real regret, and that disarmed her a little. "Come in," she finally said, making space. The house exuded a comfort that Shane's mansion would never have. Photos on the walls, fresh flowers, the smell of freshly baked cake, living memories scattered everywhere. They sat in the living room and Audrey served tea with precise movements, genetically inherited by her son. "What do you want with my son, young woman?" Megan held the cup with both hands as if she needed the warmth. I hurt him, deeply, and I cannot fully understand why. I just know that..." Her voice failed. "I love him, and I want to help him if he will let me, if he will forgive me." Audrey set her cup aside, her eyes fixed on Megan. There was a battle happening there, opening up her son's past or keeping it buried, protecting him or giving this girl a chance to truly know him. Finally, she sighed deeply. "Megan, my son is not an easy man. He is tough because he learned that any crack, any vulnerability can be used to destroy him. And you," she paused, choosing her words, "you poked wounds that had been quiet for years, wounds that he can barely look at. I did not know, but I want to understand, please." Audrey got up, walked to the fireplace, and looked at the photos on the mantelpiece. She picked one up, running her fingers over the frame. Shane was 22 years old, she began, her voice heavy with old sorrow. Just 22. Still a boy thinking he was a man, arrogant as only young people can be. Megan held her breath. He got involved with an older woman, a neighbor of ours. Her name was Diana. She was 38, beautiful, sweet, but very fragile emotionally. She came from a broken marriage. She was vulnerable. Megan's stomach began to turn. They had a summer affair. Shane did not take it seriously. For him it was fun, adventure, a boy's ego being inflated by an experienced woman. But for her, Audrey closed her eyes. For her, it was the hope of starting over. What happened? She got pregnant. Megan's world swayed. And when she finally had the courage to tell him, in front of some people expecting support, expecting him to take responsibility, Audrey's voice trembled. He publicly humiliated her. Megan put her hand to her mouth, horrified. Humiliated her how? He said she was just fun, that he would never stay with someone old enough to be his mother, that he could not tie his life down to a woman who wanted to force him to grow up before his time, that she was trying to trap him with the pregnancy. Audrey wiped away a tear that escaped. They were cruel words, Megan. Words that destroyed that woman. The silence in the room was suffocating. Her family immediately cut contact with Shane. Diana went to live with her own mother, an elderly woman. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Many complications, severe preeclampsia, and when the time for childbirth came, Audrey had to sit down again. She did not make it. She died? Megan whispered, tears streaming down her face. She died looking at her mother, saying my son's name, asking someone to tell Shane that she forgave him, to take care of the baby. Megan's crying was silent but deep. Audrey continued, her own voice broken. The baby survived, a boy. His maternal grandmother kept him, but she was devastated, full of bitterness and hatred. She blamed Shane for her daughter's death, and she made that boy grow up believing that he had lost his mother because of a cold, selfish, irresponsible man who never wanted him. Ian? Megan whispered, finally understanding. Ian, Audrey confirmed. The son Shane could never know. The son he destroyed, the chance to have even before he was born. But did he try to see the boy afterward? He tried. God knows how he tried. Audrey's voice became hoarse. When he finally matured, when he realized the monster he had been, when the regret completely consumed him, he went after them. He searched for years. He begged to see Ian. He offered financial help, support, anything. And he found only closed doors, insults, contempt. The grandmother would not allow contact. She said Shane had killed her daughter and did not deserve to know his grandson. Ian grew up hearing that. He grew up hating the father he never saw. Megan's heart was shattered. My son, Audrey looked directly at her now, carries this guilt every day. He would give everything, all the fortune he has built, all the success, everything, to go back in time, to have recognized his son immediately, to have been by Diana's side when she needed him most, to have been a man when he was just an idiot boy. Megan was openly weeping now, sobbing. Audrey moved closer, placing her hand over Megan's. And when you said at the wedding that he was old enough to be your father, her voice became harsher. You hit him exactly where he bleeds every day, because he feels like he failed as a man and as a father, that he does not deserve to be called a father, that he destroyed the only chance he had to be one. I did not know, Megan sobbed. I swear to God I did not know. Now you do, Audrey said, not without kindness. And if you truly love him, you will need to prove it. Because trust is not something my son offers twice. He has been broken too much for that. Megan wiped her tears, taking a deep breath. Her gaze changed from guilt to determination. Where is Ian now? Audrey widened her eyes. Why? Because if I want to help Shane, I need to help him with what hurts the most. And his greatest pain is not having his son. Megan, this is dangerous. Ian's grandmother died 2 years ago, but the boy, now a 22-year-old man, grew up believing that version of the story. He will not welcome you kindly. He might throw you out. He might curse at you. He might— It does not matter, Megan interrupted firm. I am going to try. For Shane. Because he deserves to have his son back. He deserves the chance to redeem himself. To be the father he never got to be. Audrey watched her for long seconds. There was strength there, determination, genuine love. Finally, she wrote an address on a piece of paper. He lives here, a simple apartment in Wicker Park. He works at a mechanic shop during the day, studies engineering at night. He is a good boy, despite everything. But he is wounded. Megan, very wounded. Megan took the paper, clutching it as if it were a treasure map. I am going to bring him back to Shane, or I will die trying. Audrey held her hands. You are stronger than I imagined. But be careful, child. Poking at old pains can open wounds that never closed. I know, but it is worth the risk. For him, it is worth any risk. When Megan left Audrey's house, the sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in orange and red, and she knew her life had just changed forever, because for the first time, she was not thinking about herself. She was thinking about saving the man she loved, even if that meant facing demons that were not hers. That night back at the mansion, Megan ate dinner in silence while Shane worked in his office. He did not even know she had left. He suspected nothing. She watched him from afar through the slightly ajar door. He was focused on reports, his brow furrowed, pen tapping rhythmically on the paper. And for the first time, she did not see the cold, controlled man. She saw a broken father, a man who lost everything that mattered before he even knew he had it. A man carrying mountains of guilt and regret alone. I am going to fix this, she whispered to herself. I promise I will fix this. She went up to her room, took the paper with Ian's address and started planning. Tomorrow she would go to him. Tomorrow she would begin to rebuild what had been shattered more than 20 years ago. And if Shane never forgave her for getting involved, at least she would have tried. Because that is what love did. It turned you into someone brave enough to fix what was broken, even when the story was not yours, even when the risk was huge, even when there were no guarantees of a happy ending. She lay down in the enormous bed, hugging the pillow, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had chosen to carry. And for the first time since she married, she slept in peace, because she had a purpose now, to bring Ian back, to reunite father and son, to heal the wound that had been bleeding for 2 decades, and perhaps to truly win the heart of the man she had learned to love. Megan hardly slept that night. She mentally went over what she would say 1,000 times, each version seeming more inadequate than the last. How to convince a 22-year-old man to forgive a father he never met. How to undo 2 decades of bitterness planted by someone he loved. At 7 o'clock in the morning, she got up with renewed determination. She dressed simply. Jeans, a white blouse, comfortable sneakers. No expensive clothes or ostentation. She needed to look genuine, not the rich wife of the man Ian hated. Shane had already left for a meeting when she went downstairs. All the better. He would not be able to stop what he did not even know was happening. She grabbed the keys to her own car, not the luxury sedan Shane had made available to her, but the old Honda she insisted on keeping, and drove to Wicker Park. The address led to an old but well-maintained apartment building. Nothing luxurious, but clean, honest. The kind of place where working people built their lives away from the spotlight. Megan climbed the 3 flights of stairs, her heart beating harder with each step. She stopped in front of apartment 3C's door, took 3 deep breaths, and rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and Megan completely froze. The young man standing before her was 22, but his face was unmistakably Shane's. The same penetrating gray eyes, the same pronounced eyebrows, the same strong jaw, the same serious way of observing the world before letting anyone into his space. It was like looking at a younger version of her husband. He frowned when he saw her. "Can I help you?" "Ian," she forced her voice to be steady. "My name is Megan. I am married to Shane Chambers." The change was instantaneous. His face hardened, his eyes darkened, his posture became defensive. "My father," he said with poisonous contempt in the word, "does not have a wife. My father has nothing to do with me. Leave." He tried to close the door, but Megan held it with her hand. "Please listen to me. Just 5 minutes. I have nothing to listen to. If you came to deliver a message from that man, go back and tell him I do not want to see his face. I never have, and I never will." "You need to stop." Megan raised her voice, surprising herself. "You are talking about a man you do not even truly know." He turned with blazing anger in his eyes. "I know enough. He destroyed my mother. My grandmother told me my whole life how he—" "Your grandmother was destroyed by grief," Megan cut in firmly, without shaking. "She lost her daughter and needed someone to blame. I understand that. But you do not have the right to repeat a version of the story that you did not even witness. You were barely born yet." Ian scoffed, irritated, but without immediately throwing her out. "And were you there? From what I can tell, you must have been a baby when it all happened." "No, I was not," she admitted. "But I know the man he is today, and I know the weight he carries every day because of what he did when he was 22. The young man looked away, but something in her firmness made him hesitate. Megan took a deep breath, feeling her heart pound. "Have you ever thought about what it is like to be 22 and find out that a much older woman is pregnant? With you? Shane was practically a teenager. Inconsiderate, immature, selfish, yes. Wrong in everything he did, yes. Cruel without measuring the consequences, yes. But he was a scared boy who reacted in the worst possible way." Ian clenched his jaw, but he was listening. "Today, he is a different man, a man who pays dearly every day for the mistake he made at 22, a man who would give everything, all the fortune he built, all the success, all the reputation, to go back in time and do things differently. Do you really think I'm going to believe that?" His voice came out shaky, less convinced than before. "That a man like him cares? I think," Megan said softly, "that you are too smart to believe only what you have been told your whole life. Your grandmother is no longer here to stop you from thinking for yourself, from seeking the truth, from giving yourself a chance to hear the other side of the story." His eyes wavered, the armor cracking slightly. Megan delivered the final blow, not with cruelty, but with gentle truth. "Ian, you have spent your whole life without a mother. That is a pain I cannot even imagine. But you can still have a father. Even if it is late, even if it hurts, even if it is difficult at first, you can still have a family." Absolute silence took over the hallway. Ian took a deep breath, his voice failing for the first time since the door opened. "What if I meet him and it is all a lie? What if he is exactly the monster my grandmother said he was? Then you will have tried and you can move on with your life knowing the truth," Megan said, a thread of a sad smile on her lips. "But what if he is not? What if you discover you have a father who loves you desperately, who dreams of you every night, who saved every piece of information he could about you over the years? Are you going to give up on that without even trying?" He closed his eyes, fighting something huge inside him, against years of nurtured anger, against the fear of being disappointed, against the dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, he was not alone in the world. When he opened his eyes again, the decision was made. "All right," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I will meet him, but I do not promise anything beyond that." Megan felt like crying right there in the hallway. "That is all I am asking for, a chance, that is all." Ian grabbed his jacket, locked the apartment, and followed her down the stairs in tense silence. In the car, he was restless, his fingers drumming on his knee, looking out the window as if he were going to his own judgment. "Does he know I'm coming?" he asked, suddenly. "No," Megan admitted, driving through the streets of Chicago. "He does not know anything. He does not know I went to you. He does not know I am bringing you to him. What if he does not want to see me? What if it is just obligation, guilt? Ian, look at me." She stopped at a red light and turned completely to him. "Your father keeps a photo of you from when you were 8 in his office drawer. A crumpled, faded photo that he clearly holds often. He searched for you for years. He begged to see you. He was rejected countless times, and yet he never completely gave up. That is not obligation. That is love." His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I do not know what to feel," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I spent my whole life hating him, and now you are telling me that maybe I was wrong all this time. You were not wrong to be angry. The pain was real. The absence was real. But perhaps the story was not complete." He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes quickly. The rest of the drive was silent, each lost in their own thoughts, their own fears, their own impossible hopes. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Shane was in his office finishing signing some documents when he heard the sound of a car arriving. He frowned. Had Megan gone out? He had not even noticed. He continued working, but something in him became alert when he heard the front door open and muffled voices in the hall. Megan's voice, and another voice. Masculine, young. He stood up, walked to the office door, and stopped. Down the hallway, Megan was walking slowly, and next to her was a tall young man in jeans and a simple t-shirt, dark hair slightly messy. Shane felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. That face. He knew that face. He had dreamed of that face thousands of times. He had imagined what it would look like. He had saved old photos and tried to project how the boy would have grown up. And there he was, his son, Ian. The world stopped spinning. Shane went completely pale, grasping the doorframe to keep from falling. He stopped breathing. His heart pounded so hard it physically hurt his chest. "Ian!" The word came out as a hoarse, broken whisper, loaded with more than 20 years of pain, guilt, regret, and desperate love. The young man stopped a few feet away, his eyes wide, his body tense, not knowing what to do with his hands, with his feet, with his own heart that was beating erratically. You came to me?" Shane murmured, incredulous, his voice failing. "For real, you are here?" Ian swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "I came to hear you out. That is all. I do not promise anything more." Shane took a shaky, deep breath, his eyes welling up with tears that he could no longer hold back. "I have no right to ask anything of you," he said, each word painful to utter. "Nothing. I destroyed everything before it even began. I made a mistake in a way that will haunt me until my last day." Ian looked away, clenching his jaw, trying not to get emotional. Shane continued, his voice increasingly choked. "But I looked for you. For years I tried. I knocked on every closed door. I endured every insult, every curse, every rejection. And even when you hated me, and you had every right to hate me, I never stopped loving you." He took a hesitant step forward. "I followed your life from afar. Every piece of information I could get, I kept like a treasure. I knew when you started school, when you graduated from high school, when you got into engineering school. Every one of your achievements, even without you knowing, I celebrated alone." Tears were streaming freely down Shane's face now. That man always so controlled, always so guarded, completely broken before his son. "I love you, Ian. Always have. Even without the right. Even without having earned that love. Even knowing that perhaps you will never be able to feel the same about me. But it is the truth. And I needed you to know." Ian took a deep, shaky breath, the tears starting to fall. The wall he had built for 22 years began to crack, to break, to crumble. "I do not know what to feel," he admitted, his voice completely failing. "But I want to try. I want to try to understand. I want to know who you really are." Shane closed his eyes as if those words were more than he ever expected to hear in his life. "That is already infinitely more than I deserve." He approached slowly, carefully, afraid of breaking that fragile and precious moment. He stopped in front of his son, looking at That face that was so much like his own. At those eyes that carried the same pain he knew so well. Can I hug you? Shane asked. Ian hesitated for a second that felt like an eternity. Then he nodded slowly. Shane pulled him into a tight, desperate embrace. 22 years of absence compressed into a single moment. He held his son as if he feared he would disappear, as if it were a dream about to end. And Ian, after a frozen moment, returned the hug. Slowly at first, then tighter, allowing himself finally to feel what it was like to have a father. Shane broke down. He sobbed against his son's shoulder, his body trembling, all the control he always maintained completely disintegrating. "Forgive me," he murmured between sobs. "Forgive me, son. Forgive me." Ian tightened the hug, his own tears falling freely. "I will try. I will try." Megan watched from a distance, biting her lip to control her own crying. There, in that huge, cold room, a man broken for decades was finally picking himself up, and a boy who grew up without a father was finally finding the place where he could belong. When they finally separated, Shane held Ian's face with both hands, studying every detail as if he wanted to memorize it. "You look like your mother," he said softly. The eyes, the smile. She was beautiful, and I was an idiot for not having seen the gift she was offering me. Ian wiped his tears, taking a deep breath. "Tell me about her. Everything you remember. I will tell you. Everything," Shane promised. "Every memory I have, every detail. She deserves to be remembered as the incredible woman she was, not just for the tragedy." He took a deep breath, mustering the courage for the next request. "Ian, I know it is early. I know you need time, but..." His voice failed. "Come live with me. I lost 22 years of your life. I do not want to lose. Another day, please." Ian looked around the gigantic mansion, then at that broken man in front of him, then at Megan, who had risked everything to make that moment happen. "I would love to," he said, a small but genuine smile appearing for the first time. "I really would love to get to know my father." Shane pulled him into another hug, tighter, longer, holding his son like someone who finally recovers half of their own soul. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me this chance." When they separated again, Shane finally looked at Megan, truly looked, and what she saw in his eyes was gratitude so deep it bordered on adoration. He did not say anything yet. He could not. But the way he looked at her said everything. Megan smiled through her tears, because at that moment she did not need words. She had just witnessed a miracle. She had just reunited father and son. She had just healed a 2-decade-old wound. And for the first time since she married, she felt she was exactly where she should be, doing exactly what needed to be done, loving a man who finally was having the chance to be happy. Shane walked up to her, his eyes still glistening with tears. He held her face with both hands with the same delicacy he had held his son's face. "You did this," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You brought my son back. I love you," she said simply, "and I wanted to see you happy." He pulled her into a tight embrace, burying his face in her hair. "I do not deserve you." "Nonsense. You deserve every good thing in the world." Ian watched the two with a half smile, realizing for the first time that perhaps his father had found something precious in that brave girl. "So," he cleared his throat, "is someone going to show me this whole mansion, or am I going to have to stay here in the hall all day?" Shane laughed, a genuine light laugh, full of relief and joy that he had not felt for decades. "Come on, son. I will show you everything, including the room you are going to occupy. You can choose any one you want." As Shane led Ian through the corridors, explaining each room, telling stories, laughing together, Megan stayed behind, just watching. And for the first time, that huge cold house began to feel like a real home, with life, with laughter, with love, with family. A shattered family that was finally rebuilding itself. Imperfect, unlikely, built on ruins and regrets, but real. And Megan knew she would be a part of it, because she had chosen to fight for this man. And he finally had something to live for besides guilt. He had his son back, and he had a woman by his side who loved him completely, scars and all. Hours later, when the door closed behind Ian, who had gone to retrieve his belongings from the apartment with the help of Shane's driver. The sound of the car, pulling away from the mansion entrance, left the house immersed in a new silence. It was no longer the heavy, tense silence of the previous days. It was a different silence, vibrant, full of something warm and urgent about to explode. Megan stood in the middle of the room, still trying to process everything that had happened. Her heart was racing. Her hands were trembling. Slightly. Everything seemed surreal. She had done that. She had really reunited father and son. She had fixed something that seemed irreparable. Shane, for his part, remained motionless for long seconds after Ian left, as if he needed that moment to assimilate that everything was real, that his son was back, that after 22 years of guilt, regret, and closed doors, he finally had a second chance, and all because of her. Slowly, as if each movement required conscious effort, he turned to Megan. His eyes met hers across the spacious room, and the intensity of that gaze instantly heated the air around them. First there was shock in his eyes, then gratitude, then something deeper, more intense, more dangerous. He took a step toward her, then another, his steps deliberate, measured like a predator circling its prey. But there was nothing threatening there. It was pure emotional intensity walking toward her. Megan, his voice, came out lower than normal, hoarse, laden with emotion he could barely contain. She raised her face to him, feeling her heart race even faster, if that was possible. "Why did you do that?" he asked when he finally stopped in front of her, so close that she could feel the heat of his body. "Why did you go after my son? Why did you risk everything? Why did you fix something that was not even your responsibility?" His voice trembled slightly at the end, revealing the vulnerability he rarely showed. For a moment Megan thought about giving a light answer, about running away from the truth as she always did when things got too serious. But no, not after everything. Not when he was standing there, completely open before her for the first time. "Because I love you," she said without hesitation, her voice steady despite the tears that began to shine in her eyes. "I love you, Shane, more than I should, more than is sensible, more than I can explain." He blinked as if doubting his own hearing. "What?" "I love you," she repeated, taking a step forward, eliminating the little space that still existed between them. "I love your serious manner. I love how you care even when you pretend you do not. I love your strength. I love your scars. I love everything you are, including all the broken parts you try to hide." The tears flowed freely now. "I was an idiot. I hurt you in every possible way. I said horrible things because I was scared, because I was afraid of feeling something so intense for someone. I was afraid to admit that you affected me more than anyone ever has." Shane opened his mouth to speak, but she continued, needing to say everything before her courage failed. "You did not deserve anything I said at the wedding. You did not deserve to be humiliated like that. You did not deserve the cruel words about your age, about being my father. God, Shane, I do not know how you did not kick me out of here that same day. Megan, I should have listened to you, seen you, understood you from the start, but I was too blind by my own immaturity. And when I finally found out about Ian, about Diana, about everything you carried alone for 22 years, her voice broke. I had to do something. I needed to somehow show that I really love you, that I see who you truly are." She placed her hand on his chest exactly where his heart was beating strong and fast. "Forgive me," she whispered, "for everything, for every word, every look, every moment I made you feel less than you really are. Forgive me, please." Shane held her hand against his chest, firm, warm, as if he wanted her to feel every beat of that heart that now belonged to her. "Megan," he murmured, his voice laden with such intense emotion that it hurt to hear it. "You have no idea what you did for me today. No idea." He held her, face between his two hands, with a delicacy that contrasted with the strength of those hands. "I spent half my life believing I did not deserve to be a father, that I did not deserve to be loved, that everything I touched inevitably broke, that I was condemned to live alone as punishment for my mistakes." His eyes were glistening with moisture now. "And then you appeared, a beautiful, impossible, completely crazy girl who made me furious and fascinated at the same time. And I tried to resist. God knows how I tried. I tried to keep my distance, maintain, control, protect my heart from being destroyed again. He rested his forehead against hers, breathing heavily. But you went to my son. You faced the dirtiest story of my life. You faced a young man who had every reason to hate me, and you brought him back to me. Why? Because you love me. He pulled her face back just enough to look directly into her eyes. No one has ever done anything like this for me, Megan. No one has ever loved me enough to face my demons alongside me, to fight for me, to give me back something I thought I had lost forever. The tears streamed down his face now. That man always so controlled, completely broken before her. I love you too, he confessed, each word coming from the depth of his soul. I love you in a way that scares me. I love you more than I imagined I could ever love someone again. I love you with every broken piece inside me. Shane, she whispered, her heart exploding in her chest. You made me believe that I can be better, that I can have a second chance, that I can be happy without carrying guilt for it. You gave me my son back. You gave me a family. You gave me a future I did not know was still possible. He wiped her tears with his thumbs, his eyes fixed on her with overwhelming intensity. I love you, Megan Walker Chambers. Completely, desperately, forever. The air between them heated up as if it were alive, pulsating, electric. They were both breathing heavily, their eyes locked, their bodies so close that there was no space for even air to circulate. And then, just as the kiss was about to happen, Megan put her hand on his chest and said with a tear-streaked, mischievous smile, "You are going to have to ask me. Properly, right?" Shane stopped, widening his eyes in surprise. Then he laughed. A low, warm, genuine laugh that she had rarely heard before, and which was the most beautiful sound in the world. "You are impossible," he said, his eyes shining with a mix of amusement and desire. "I know," she replied, lifting her chin with false arrogance. "But even so, you need to ask." He held her face again, firm, possessive, looking into her eyes with an intensity that made her legs wobbly. "Megan," he said, his voice low, hoarse, absolutely devastating. "Kiss me, please, because I cannot go another second without feeling your lips on mine." She pretended to think, biting her lip. "Maybe, Megan," he warned, but he was smiling, that rare and beautiful smile she already loved. She laughed, leaned in, and finally kissed him. It was like an explosion, like 20 days of tension, desire, and repressed feelings being released all at once. The kiss was hot, desperate, full of hunger and surrender. He pulled her by the waist, pressing her body against his. She held the back of his neck, her fingers intertwining in his dark hair. They kissed as if they were discovering something new and old at the same time, as if they had waited their whole lives for that exact moment. When they finally separated for the need of air, Shane rested his forehead against hers, both breathing heavily, their hearts beating in sync. "Is that a yes?" he asked, his voice husky. "It is an eternal yes," she replied, smiling against his lips. "It is a yes to everything, to you, to us, to this crazy family we are building." "Family," he repeated, as if tasting the word, as if it were the first time it had real meaning. "I like that. Me too." He kissed her again, and once more. Deep, slow kisses, laden with promises, kisses that said everything words could not express. Until Shane wrapped his arms around her waist and, in a fluid movement, lifted her off the floor, causing her to wrap her legs around his waist. Megan let out a surprised giggle. "What are you doing?" "Taking you to my room," he said, beginning to walk toward the stairs, holding her easily. "Unless you prefer me to kiss you until you pass out right here in the living room." "The room sounds like a better idea," she agreed, kissing his neck, feeling his pulse quicken beneath her lips. He climbed the stairs with her in his arms as if she weighed nothing. He entered the master bedroom, that huge, impeccable room where he had slept alone for so long, and gently set her on her feet. For a moment they stood there, just looking at each other in the dim light of the room, illuminated only by the light from the hallway. "Are you sure?" he asked softly, giving her the chance to back out if she wanted. "Because if you are not, we can wait. It does not have to be now, it does not have to." She silenced him with a kiss. A long, deep kiss that answered all his questions. "I am sure," she whispered against his lips. "I have never been so sure of anything in my life." That was all he needed to hear. Shane pulled her close again, kissing her with renewed intensity. His hands slid down her back, her waist, her hips, exploring with reverence as if she were too precious to be real. Megan returned the urgency, running her hands over his broad shoulders, his firm chest through his shirt, feeling his body react to her touch. The kisses deepened. Their breaths grew heavier. The temperature in the room climbed rapidly. Shane guided her to the enormous bed, laying her down. Carefully, as if she were fragile, he lay down beside her, propped on his elbow, just looking at her for long seconds. "You are beautiful," he said simply, but there was so much sincerity in his voice that it made her heart melt. "You are too," she replied, running her fingers over his face, tracing his strong jawline, his lips. "You are the most handsome man I have ever seen." He smiled, that rare smile she was learning to provoke, and kissed her again. The night unfolded in a slow and intense movement. Every touch was deliberate, loaded with meaning. Every kiss was a promise. Every whisper was a declaration. Shane touched her as if he were memorizing every inch, every curve, every reaction. Megan surrendered completely, without reservations, without fears, because she finally understood what it meant to truly love someone. It was not just physical attraction, although that was there, intense and undeniable. It was connection. It was trust. It was mutual surrender. It was choosing that person every day with all their flaws and scars. When they finally became one, it was with tenderness and passion, mixed together, with eyes locked, with hands intertwined, with whispers of love and promises of forever. The night was full of discoveries, of surrender, of moments that were etched in both their souls forever. And when the dawn began to paint the Chicago sky in shades of pink and gold, they were intertwined in the enormous bed, exhausted but complete. Megan was lying on his chest, listening to his heart beat strong and steady beneath her ear. Shane had his arm around her, his hand drawing lazy patterns on her back. "I love you," he murmured in the darkness, kissing the top of her head. "I love you too," she replied, tightening her embrace. "Forever, forever," he echoed, like a sacred promise. And for the first time in a long time, Shane allowed himself to sleep in peace, without guilt, without regret, without fear of the future, because he had everything he needed right there: an extraordinary woman in his arms, a son who had returned to his life, and finally, the chance to be happy. Megan also fell asleep smiling. Her heart was calm, her soul at peace, because she had found her place in the world. It was not in the giant mansion or the life of luxury. It was in the arms of that man she had learned to love with every fiber of her being. And when Ian returned a few hours later with the moving boxes, he found the mansion silent but different. There was something in the air, something light, warm, alive. He smiled to himself, realizing what had happened. His father had finally allowed himself to be happy, and that strange and improbable family was finally starting to become real. The morning sun entered through the open curtains like a soft invitation to wake up, but Megan woke up before him. Shane slept beside her, his breathing serene, his face relaxed in a way she had never seen before. So different from the tough, controlled, and closed-off man he showed to the world. She stayed there just watching for long minutes, too long. He was beautiful that way, vulnerable in sleep, his hair slightly messy, the strong line of his jaw, his large hand resting on the pillow as if he was still unconsciously reaching for her. A warm and frightening tightness rose in her chest. "My God," she whispered softly, almost breathless. "I really have completely fallen in love with him." And there lay the danger. She could like him too much, could fall even more in love, could dive in without return. But a part of her, that insecure part that grew up hearing she was immature and irresponsible, still could not fully see herself as his real wife. They were so different. 20 years difference. Completely distinct worlds. He was sophistication and control. She was chaos and spontaneity. How could this really work in the long run? Fear began to creep in, silent and treacherous. She took a deep breath, got up slowly so as not to wake him, and left the room. She needed air. She needed space to think without those gray eyes watching her and making all rational thought disappear. In the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee greeted her. Olivia was setting the breakfast table when she saw Megan enter, her hair messy and wearing one of Shane's shirts that she found thrown on the armchair. The employee gave a discreet, almost complicit smile, which made Megan blush instantly. "Good morning, Mrs. Chambers." "Hi, Olivia," Megan murmured, grabbing a cup of coffee as if her life depended on it. "Did you sleep well?" Olivia asked with an innocence too studied to be genuine. In the boss's room, the cup almost slipped from Megan's hand. "Olivia," she whispered, mortified, looking around to make sure they were alone. "It is not what you are thinking." The housekeeper crossed her arms, clearly not believing a word. "I have worked here for many years, ma'am. I know when a man does not sleep alone. And this morning when I walked past the hallway, there were 2 hearts beating in that room instead of 1. Megan turned red to the roots of her hair, and in a reflex of panic, insecurity, and fear that everything was too good to be true, she blurted out the worst possible sentence. "It was just one night. It does not mean anything. I am not crazy enough to think this can turn into a real marriage, you know. He is him, and I am me. It is too unlikely." Olivia's cup almost fell to the floor, not because of what Megan said, but because a third person had just entered the kitchen, and that person had heard everything, because behind Megan, standing in the doorway, Shane was motionless. He had come down to find her, perhaps to have breakfast together, to start the day in that new and frighteningly perfect way. His heart clenched as if someone had closed their hand over it and squeezed mercilessly. But his face turned to pure stone. All the defenses that had fallen the night before were raised again in a matter of seconds, higher and stronger. "Good morning," he said in a cold, cutting voice, walking into the kitchen. Megan spun around, instantly paling. "Shane, I did not know you do not need to explain?" He cut her off, his voice impeccable, sharp as a scalpel. "After all, it was just one night. It does not mean anything, right?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Panic completely took over. Olivia, poor thing, was frozen between the two. In a desperate reflex to break the tension, she rushed to the stove and started stirring a pot with no fire, and nothing inside, just making noise to disguise the deadly embarrassment. Shane grabbed a cup of coffee, serving himself with mechanical movements, as if Megan had not just crushed something precious inside him, as if it did not hurt so much that he could barely breathe. "Shane, please let me explain." Megan tried again, her voice trembling. "Explain what?" He turned, looking directly at her with that coldness she had not seen for days. "That I heard exactly what you said. That it was clear, crystal clear. That was not serious. I was nervous, ashamed of being too obvious. Ashamed," he repeated, laughing without any humor. "So now you are ashamed of me?" "No, that is not it." He placed the cup on the counter with more force than necessary. "Funny, Megan, you yourself said at the wedding that you would never feel anything for me. Then you admitted you wanted me. You begged me for a kiss. We spent the night together, and now you are telling people it was just one meaningless night." He approached, but there was no warmth there, only ice. "How do you want me to trust you? How do you want me to believe any word that comes out of your mouth?" Her breath completely hitched. "I did not mean it that way. I was just scared." "Scared of what?" He pressed, his voice low but hard. "Scared of admitting you want something with me, or scared of what others will think of you for being with someone like me." "I do not think that way," she replied, feeling the tears threaten. I'm just trying to figure out what we are, trying to process everything that is happening so fast." "Then I already understand," he said, turning his back. "Nothing. We are nothing. Do not talk to me like that. If you do not want to hear hard truths, do not say things you cannot back up, Megan." It was a direct hit to her heart. He left the kitchen, closing the door with a chilling calm, that calm that only a deeply hurt man can possess. Megan sank into a chair, covering her mouth with her hands to stifle the cry that erupted forcefully, because there, for the first time with absolute clarity, she realized 2 things. She loved him completely, and she had just hurt him in the worst possible way. Again, Olivia approached, placing her hand on Megan's shoulder. "Ma'am, he just needs time to—" "I ruined everything," Megan sobbed. "Everything. I always ruin everything." The entire house remained tense for the rest of the morning. Shane spoke little, looked even less. Every time he crossed paths with Megan, it was like an iceberg crossing the space. Cold, impenetrable, dangerous. Her heart seemed to shrink with every new frustrated attempt to approach him. She tried to talk, he dodged. She tried to explain, he left the room. Ian immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. During lunch, which was silent and tense, he looked from one to the other, trying to understand what had happened. Finally, when Shane got up to go to his office, Ian followed him. "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" Shane stopped, surprised by the title, still getting used to being called that. "Of course, son." They entered the office. Ian closed the door. "What happened between you and Megan?" Shane sighed, massaging his temples. "Nothing you need to worry about. I live here now. I kind of do worry." Ian crossed his arms. "You two were fine yesterday. More than fine. And today it looks like the world ended. It is complicated. It always is." Ian approached. "But she brought me back to you. She risked everything to make you happy. That counts for something, does it not?" Shane looked at his son, seeing wisdom beyond his years. "She said something this morning, something that made me realize maybe I was foolish to think she could really want me." "What did she say?" "That last night was just one night, that it meant nothing." Ian shook his head. "And you believe that? Do you really think she did everything she did? That she looks at you the way she does for something that means nothing?" Shane was silent. "Dad, I am young. I do not understand much about relationships, but even I can see that girl is crazy about you. Maybe she said something silly because she was scared. People do that. They say stupid things when they are terrified of what they feel. Do you really think so?" "I know." "So, and you know it too, if you stop being stubborn for 2 seconds. Shane chuckled softly, without humor. "When did you get so wise?" "Genes. I got them from my dad." That drew a genuine smile from Shane. "She hurt your feelings," Ian continued seriously. "I get it, but are you going to let pride destroy something that could be incredible? Something you clearly want as much as she does?" Shane did not answer, but something in his gaze shifted. Meanwhile, Megan was in the bedroom, lying on the bed hugging a pillow, trying to figure out how to fix that catastrophe. She had to try. She could not give up. Not when she had finally found someone worth fighting for. She got up, washed her face, took a deep breath, and went to his office. She knocked on the door. "Shane, I need to talk to you, please." Silence. "I know you do not want to hear me. I know I hurt you, but please, just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes and I promise I will leave you alone if you still do not want to listen to me." The door opened. Shane was there, leaning against the door frame, his arms crossed, his expression impenetrable. 5 minutes. She entered, her heart beating uncontrollably. He closed the door and stood there waiting. "I ruined everything this morning," she began, her voice trembling. "I said something horrible, something I did not truly mean. And you have every right to be furious with me. But I need you to understand why I said that. It is not an excuse. It is just an explanation." He said nothing, so she continued. "I woke up today, saw you sleeping, and realized I have fallen in love with you in a way that terrifies me. Because you are incredible. You are strong, smart, handsome, protective. You are everything I never thought I could have." Tears began to fall. "And I am just me, a 26-year-old girl who does not have half your maturity, who says the wrong things, who acts on impulse, who ruins everything she touches. And I got scared, Shane. Scared that you would realize that and decide you made a mistake. So, when Olivia asked, I panicked and said those stupid things. Not because I believed them, but because I was terrified they were true for you." Shane slowly uncrossed his arms. "But they are not true," she continued, her voice steady despite the tears. "Last night meant everything to me. It was the most important night of my life. And I love you, Shane. I love you so much it hurts. I love you with every part of me." She took a step forward. "And I know I am not perfect. I know I will make mistakes again because I am human and sometimes idiotic. But I promise to love you every day. I promise to fight for you. I promise to be the person you deserve, even if it takes a lifetime to get there." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Shane finally moved. He walked toward her with slow, deliberate steps. He stopped right in front of her, so close that she had to tilt her head back to look into his eyes. "You made me furious this morning," he said softly. "I know. I am sorry. More furious than I have been in a long time. I understand. But do you know what made me even more furious?" He held her face between his hands. "It was realizing that I was scared too. Scared that you would realize you can have someone better, someone younger, easier, less broken." Her eyes widened. "And when I heard you saying those things, it was as if all my fears were being confirmed. As if I was right all along to think I was not good enough for you. Shane, you are more than good enough. You are everything." He rested his forehead against hers. "We are both idiots, are we not? Two idiots in love and afraid of ruining everything." "Apparently, yes." He chuckled softly, and the sound was like music. "I love you too, Megan. I love you in a way that grounds me, and I am going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. I will show you every day that you are exactly who I want, who I choose, who I love. Do you promise?" "I promise." And then he kissed her. A deep kiss, full of forgiveness, of new beginnings, of renewed promises. When they separated, they were both smiling through their tears. "Never scare me like that again," he murmured against her lips. "Never doubt us again," she replied. "Deal." They stood there hugging. For long minutes, just enjoying the closeness, the relief, the certainty that they had overcome another obstacle together. 2 months later, the dining room table had never been so full, so alive, so complete. Audrey was chatting animatedly with Adam, who had been invited to get to know his son-in-law and the grandson he did not even know existed better. Ian was explaining to his maternal grandfather, how his engineering course worked, gesticulating enthusiastically. Megan watched the scene with a warm heart. 2 months ago, that house seemed cold and empty. Today it felt like a real home. And Shane? Shane was completely different, lighter, more smiling, happier. Ian called him Dad all the time, including him in everything. And every time he heard that word, Shane grew inside. When everyone was served, Shane stood up with his glass in hand. "I wanted to make a toast," he began. Everyone fell silent, attentive. 2 months ago, my life completely changed. I got my son back. He looked at Ian, who smiled shyly. I rebuilt relationships I thought were lost. He looked at Adam. I gained a bigger family. He looked at Audrey. And I had the absurd luck to marry an extraordinary woman, crazy, impulsive, impossible. He looked at Megan, who put her hand to her chest, feigning offense. But absolutely perfect for me. Laughter filled the room. Today I toast to the family we found in each other, to the second chance life gave me, to the peace I never thought I would have, and to the love I thought I would never deserve. He raised his glass. Everyone raised theirs too. Ian stood up. Can I say something too? Of course, son. I just wanted to thank Megan. He looked at her with genuine gratitude, for being brave enough to do what no one else did, for giving me back my father, and for making him smile the way he smiles now. Audrey subtly wiped away a tear. Adam gave his son-in-law a proud pat on the shoulder, and Megan felt her chest burst with happiness. Then she slowly stood up, placing her hand over her own belly in an unconscious gesture. Since we are talking about love, about family, and about having Ian back, she began, her smile growing. I think you all should know one thing. Shane frowned, curious. There is one more member coming to this family. The world stopped. Shane's glass almost slipped from his hand. Ian's eyes widened. Audrey put her hand to her mouth. Adam raised his eyebrows, surprised but emotional. Are you serious? Shane whispered, slowly standing up. Really? Really? She smiled, her eyes shining. We are having a baby. He took a step back as if he needed air, then 2 steps forward, and then hugged her so tightly that she almost lost her balance, laughing against his shoulder. Megan, he murmured, his voice hoarse with emotion. Are serious? Truly? Truly, we are going to be parents together for real. He laughed. He laughed like a man who had waited his whole life for that moment. He laughed like someone who was finally complete. Ian approached, somewhat awkward. So I am going to be a big brother? Shane pulled him into the hug, joining the three of them. Yes, you are, son. And you are going to be the best brother this baby could have. That is when Adam cleared his throat. So, does this mean that now that you have secured the official heir to the companies, you can finally get divorced, cannot you? Shane shot a deadly look at his father-in-law. Megan burst into laughter. If I divorce him now, who will warm my feet at night? I am not looking for another husband. It is too much work to train a new one. Shane pulled her close by the waist, his eyes shining with love. I love you, you crazy woman. I love you too, my favorite grumpy man. You're grumpy man forever, he corrected. Forever, she agreed, smiling. He kissed her right there in the middle of the family dinner, amidst discreet smiles. The family was gathered. The past was finally at peace. The future was literally arriving. And for the first time in decades, everyone there felt that this was not just a happy ending. It was the beginning of an entire life. A life built on ruins, regrets, and second chances, but built with true love, the kind of love that withstands storms, that grows in difficulty, that strengthens in crises. Shane looked around the table, his found son, his happy mother, his father-in-law now part of the family, and the woman he loved carrying his baby. And for the first time since he was 20, he allowed himself to believe that he deserved that happiness, that he deserved a new start, that he deserved to love and be loved. Because love, he discovered, was not about being perfect. It was about being real. It was about choosing every day. It was about forgiving, starting over, and building together. And as they toasted again, this time to the future, Shane held Megan's hand under the table and whispered just for her, "Thank you for saving me." "You saved me too," she whispered back. "We saved each other." And they had, in every possible way, two broken hearts that found healing in one another, two lost souls that found each other, a shattered family that rebuilt itself better than before, because some stories do not have perfect beginnings, but they can have extraordinary endings, and theirs was just beginning. 6 months later, the mansion in Chicago was unrecognizable, not because of the architecture or decoration, though Megan had insisted on adding colors, pillows, and life to those once cold rooms, but because of the energy that pulsed through every room, the sound of laughter echoing through the hallways, the undeniable feeling that this house had finally become a real home. It was Christmas Eve, and the snow was falling softly outside, covering Chicago with its silent white mantle. Inside the mansion, however, there was warmth, light, and constant movement. Megan was in the kitchen next to Audrey, the two preparing dinner while talking and laughing. Her belly was enormous now, 8 months of pregnancy making her walk with that characteristic waddle that Shane thought was the most adorable thing in the world, though she cursed him every time he mentioned it. "Let me help you with that," Audrey said, taking the heavy serving dish from her hands. "I can do it, Audrey. I am not an invalid, just pregnant." 8 months pregnant and stubborn as a mule, Shane commented, entering the kitchen, going straight to Megan and placing his hands protectively over her belly from behind, kissing her neck. "Hello, my love. Hello, baby." Her belly responded with a strong kick. "I think she heard you," Megan smiled, covering his hands with hers. "She? Do you know it is a girl?" Audrey widened her eyes. "Not officially," Shane admitted, "but I am sure. It is father's intuition." "Last time you said you were sure it was a boy," Megan retorted, turning around in his arms. "I changed my mind. Now I am sure it is a girl, a beautiful little girl just like her mother. You just want a daughter so you can completely spoil her." "Exactly, that is my plan," he agreed shamelessly, stealing a quick kiss. "And I intend to execute it perfectly." Audrey watched the two with a smile on her face, her heart warm. Seeing her son so happy, so light, so in love, was more than she had ever dared to dream. After everything he had been through, Ian entered the kitchen carrying shopping bags. "I am here, and I brought reinforcements." Behind him came Adam, also carrying groceries. "Grandpa here. Helped me carry everything." "Grandpa," Adam repeated, testing the word and smiling. "I am still getting used to it, but I confess it is growing on me." "Prepare yourself," Shane warned, "because when this baby is born, you will be promoted to official babysitter." "I accept the position with honor," Adam declared solemnly, making everyone laugh. The table was set carefully. Olivia had prepared a feast fit for royalty. And when everyone finally sat down, Shane, Megan, Ian, Audrey, Adam, and even Aunt Grace, who had been invited, there was a moment of contemplative silence. Shane looked around the table, seeing every face, every smile, every person who was now part of his life, and his chest tightened with gratitude. "Can I say something before we begin?" he asked. "Since when do you ask permission?" Megan teased, but she was smiling. He squeezed her hand on the table. "A year ago, I was a completely different man. I lived alone in this huge, empty house, carrying guilt that I thought would stay with me forever. I had no hope. I had no family. I had nothing but work and regret." Ian looked down, moved, and then something impossible happened. "I married a crazy girl who turned my life upside down from the first second." He looked at Megan with pure love in his eyes. "A girl who would not accept my walls, who entered my life like a hurricane and destroyed every defense I had built." "Are you saying I am destructive?" Megan feigned offense. "I am saying you saved me," he corrected. His voice choked. "You gave me back my son. You gave me a family. You gave me a future. You gave me love I thought I would never deserve to have." He raised his glass. "So today, on this Christmas Eve, I give thanks. I thank every person at this table, for every second chance, for every forgiveness I received, and especially," he looked at Megan's belly, "for the little life that is arriving and who is already so loved. To love," he toasted, "to forgiveness, to family, and to new beginnings." "To new beginnings," everyone echoed, the glasses clinking. During dinner, conversations flowed naturally. Ian talked about college and the girl he had met. "Just a friend, Dad, relax." While Shane pretended not to be mentally already investigating her background. Audrey and Adam discovered they had more in common than they imagined, already planning trips together to visit their future grandchildren. And Megan? Megan just watched. Everything with a heart overflowing. Those people, that table, all that love, was more than she ever dreamed of having when she entered that house months ago as a reluctant bride. Shane noticed she was quiet and leaned in, whispering only to her, "Is everything all right? Are you feeling okay?" "I am perfect," she whispered back, just thinking how strange life is. How sometimes the worst situations lead you to the best places. "Do you regret it?" he asked, suddenly vulnerable. "Marrying me that day?" "Not for a second," she answered without hesitation. "It was the best decision I ever made, even without knowing it at the time." He kissed her temple, his heart bursting with love. After dinner, when everyone moved to the living room where the giant Christmas tree glowed with 1,000 lights, Ian brought the gifts and started distributing them. "This is for you, Dad." Ian handed him a box wrapped in red paper. Shane opened it carefully and found a frame with a recent photo of the two of them, taken last week when they went to a basketball game together. Under the photo, an engraved inscription, "To the best. 20 years we will still live together. I love you, Dad. Ian." Shane needed a moment to compose himself, quickly wiping his eyes. "Thank you, son. It will go in my office where I can see it every day. This is for you, my love." Megan handed Shane a small box. He opened it and found a classic, elegant wristwatch with an internal engraving. "To the man who taught me it. Is never too late to start over. Yours forever, Megan." "It is perfect," he said huskily, already putting it on his wrist and pulling her in for a soft kiss. "And this," Shane handed a box, "to Megan, is for you." She opened it and held her breath. It was a delicate necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. Inside the heart, 3 initials engraved, S, E, and I. "It is our family," he explained unnecessarily because she was already crying. "You, me, and Ian. And when the baby is born, I will add 1 more initial, so you always carry all of us close to your heart." "Shane," she sobbed, "it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." He put the necklace on her, kissing the back of her neck. "You deserve beautiful things every day." The evening progressed with games, laughter, and stories. Grace told embarrassing anecdotes from Megan's childhood, making everyone laugh, especially Shane, who mentally noted every detail to use as future teasing material. Around midnight, when everyone was tired and satisfied, they began to say goodbye. Audrey and Adam were the first, planning to return the next day for Christmas lunch. Grace followed shortly after, not without first giving Megan a tight hug and whispering, "You chose well, girl. This man truly loves you." Ian went upstairs to his room, claiming he needed to call his friend, who everyone already knew was more than a friend, but he was not ready to admit yet. And finally, Shane and Megan were left alone in the living room, just them and the Christmas tree lights blinking softly. "Tired?" he asked, sitting on the sofa and pulling her to sit next to him. "Exhausted, but happy," she replied, snuggling into his arms, her head resting on his chest where she could hear his heart beating strong and steady. "What are you thinking about?" he asked after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "How everything has changed. How a year ago I was terrified, being forced to marry a man I thought I would hate forever. And now I am married to the love of my life, pregnant with our baby, part of a beautiful family and happier than I ever imagined possible." He kissed the top of her head. "I never imagined I could have this either. After everything I did not think I deserved a second chance, much less a family, a son back, and you. You always deserved it, Shane. You just needed to forgive yourself. You helped me with that. You showed me that the past does not define who we are forever, that we can change, that we can be better." Megan's belly moved, a strong kick making them both laugh. "I think someone agrees," she said. Shane put his hand on her belly, feeling the baby move beneath his palm. "I cannot wait to meet you, little one," he murmured. "You are already so loved. You are going to be a great father," Megan said with certainty. "You already are. I will try, I will make mistakes sometimes, definitely, but I will be present. I will be here, and I will love the three of you with every cell of my body every day until my last breath. That is all we need," she whispered, turning her face to kiss him. "You present, you here, you loving us. It is more than enough." They stayed there hugging, watching the snow fall outside through the large windows, their hearts at peace, their souls connected, the future shining promisingly ahead. "Merry Christmas, my love," he whispered. "Merry Christmas," she replied. "The first of many we will spend together. The first of a lifetime," he corrected. And it was true, because this was not just a family that happened by accident or obligation. It was a family they chose to build every day, with love, forgiveness, and second chances. An imperfect family, full of history, scars, and new beginnings. But a real family, a family forever. And when, 3 weeks later, Megan went into labor in the middle of a January night, with Shane in absolute panic trying to remember the way to the hospital and Ian laughing in the back seat saying, "Calm down, Dad, you are driving worse than a teenager," they discovered one more truth. The girl born in that chilly Chicago dawn, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's smile, was not just the union of two companies or the fulfillment of a contract. She was the physical proof that love can bloom in the most unlikely places, that families can be rebuilt even after being shattered, that it is never too late to start over, and that sometimes the best loves of our lives begin exactly where we thought everything had ended. Shane held his daughter in his arms for the first time, looked at Megan, exhausted but radiant on the hospital bed, saw Ian on the other side holding his sister's tiny hand, and finally understood. He was not being punished by life. He was being blessed with a second chance, and this time, he was not going to waste a single second. "Welcome to the family, little Alina," he whispered, kissing the baby's forehead. "You have no idea how much you were waited for, how much you are loved, how much you are going to change our lives, for the better." Megan reached out her hand, he intertwined his fingers with hers, and there in that hospital room with his 2 children and the woman he loved, Shane Chambers finally had his happy ending. Not because it was easy, not because it was perfect, but because it was real, earned, built on ruins, and transformed into something beautiful. And that, he discovered, was infinitely better than any fairy tale. Because it was theirs, it was true, it was forever. And forever finally had begun. If this intense story full of secrets, twists, and raw emotion pulled you in, don't forget, your like and subscription matter. Comment your favorite moment and hype the story. It helps the channel grow and keeps new romances coming your way.